Okay, let's jump into forms. So we're going to use some of these grays. I might need some more, we can pull from there, maybe some lighter ones, but just for expedience sake, we're going to keep moving. So what we're going to do is do the same thing again. We want kind of boxes for these areas. So I want like kind of a larger form base, and I'm going to just span these three columns, and we're going to set this to 64. So that's our base, and then I want like a 32 pixel base up here for the form itself, the form name. Okay, and sometimes if you want, you can just these can be any color you want because we're not going to use them. So wow, that's so bad, but at least you get the idea. So this will be our form, and this will be the name for the form, and we want it to stretch without breaking the top part or the bottom, and it just makes it so much easier when you have a name, first name, last name, whatever. So what we're going to do is make this a component, and the way that we'll do that is we'll have it in two components. So I'm going to type text and we'll just say star name. So this star will be like bright red, or the salmon, and then the name, which we'll use, I like this navy, so we're gonna just make this Bootcamp Navy. All right, so we're gonna select the name, click fill, Bootcamp Navy. Okay, sorry, this looks awful, but you'll get the sense of it. So this will be our form itself, and what we'll like to do is just so it looks a little interactive, we're going to do a 3 pixel border on it, or not border, but rounded corners. So I'm going to go ahead and make this section its own component, and I'm going to call it form/header. And I think I'm going to keep all lowercase this time. And so then we'll name this part just form field. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and style this. So we'll do a stroke. Actually, this is kind of old style, so I'm just going to keep it this way, but the same applies. You want this size if you wanted just the underline like Android or some of the newer styles. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Let's see. Let's lighten this up a bit. Stroke this with 1 pixel and see if we can't use this one a little bit darker. All right, let's go to 2 so everyone can see. All right, so now we have 2 components. We have the form header and the form field. And what we want to do is inside this form field, we want to type our type and say, let's see, first name. And I don't want this to be all caps, so I'm going to go back. So I'm going to space it out 32 pixels from the edge, and this will be form text. All right. So this background, obviously we don't want, so we can hide it. So we've got the start of our form. We've got name, which this is really big for this. We just probably do kind of a small and heavy. Smaller and heavy. Okay. So now we want to go in into this background, and we want this to stay left, but we want it to stretch, and we want it to stay on the bottom because we want it to be butted up against this form. So I'm going to go in here and say left and right, so it can stretch quite a bit. We'll do the same thing with the name, but we want it to stay left. And the beauty thing of this is that you can duplicate this, and if it's failing at all, you can go back and say like, oh, I didn't do it left, or this is how I want it to react. So I'm going to turn that off. And now what we do is, now that we have form field and header, we're going to make a component of both of these. Okay, so what happened was it made an instance of both of these at the same time. So it broke out form header and form field. So this is our new component, which is master form. Or let's do form master. Oh, lowercase, come on. All right. So what we're going to do is, since we already have this here, I'm going to keep all my components up above the page. Sometimes it's nice to have them off to the left. Let's do, yeah, I'll just make these a little, make these a little smaller and keep them over here for now. And what we'll do is just keep these to the left if we need to change them at all. Okay, so now that we have this, what we're going to do is actually, Command D, and we're going to make a copy of that. We're going to select the master and pull it outside of the page, so it will be outside of the home page. So now let's see what's going on. So what happened is this needed to be left and right. So what we do is go back to here and say left and right. Sometimes what happens is, I kind of did that on purpose, is it will override it. It will just say like, hey, if you didn't say anything, we're just going to make it be left. So this one is left, this one is left and right. So what we need to do is say left, and now we have it stretching correctly. It's kind of fun. So let's say we have a sidebar here. We're gonna just have a separate area. Okay. So say we want to space these out. So we're gonna have name, first name. So we want to have first name here, and we're going to hold shift and option and duplicate it. And obviously we don't need this. So there's two ways you can do it. You can just like hide this, which sometimes I do a lot actually, or you can delete it and then come over here to form field and just hold option down, and it will make a copy of your form field. and this doesn't have the header. So you can come in here and say last name. Okay. So this looks totally bad to me. So you guys are probably like, wow, this guy is a designer. So I'm gonna make this really light. And we'll do the, oops. We'll do the fill lighter. And you can see what happened is in this master, it didn't go to the field. So I have to go back, and that's why I like having these really quick to mess with. So you can see that you can change really quickly your form fields. So what we're gonna do is change our stroke. Just a little bit lighter too. All right. So now that we've got a nice form setting, one thing you can do as you're building these, so for instance, let's say we're gonna space this. So I noticed when I typed country, what was happening was this is set to center, center align. So we have to come back here, even though this is left and right, we do this and we've got our correct spacing for country. So what's nice is now country can span the entire thing without stretching and messing all these up. But what we want as we build out the forms is, and actually that's the same way. So what we'll do is go back to this, click left, and it'll fix it. The idea is that you want a drop down to show a drop down. So you come back to form field, which is nice, is like you can always come back to this, and let's just make an arrow going down. And obviously we don't want these on all of them, and let's do just a simple drop, and we'll do this interactive color. There. All right, since we like this color, we're gonna name it Salmon Bootcamp Salmon. Okay, so what's going on here? Why is that not over there? So we only want this on the country. We don't want it on there. So what we do is come back to field, and we say we want this to be hidden, but before we do that, we want this to stay on the right, and we want it like that 32 pixel gap. So what we do is set this to right and to center. So what happens is now, as this moves, it stays the same and will lock to the right. Okay, so now we go back to the original one and say drop down arrow, and we'll hide it. And then we're like, well, it's gone on country. So all we have to do is go in there and click, yes, I want it to be there. So you can see how it's super nice, and some of the original components have a lot of fields in them that you hide and do all sorts of stuff with. So for instance, name with, not name, but phone number. So let's do a phone number version. And what we want to use is the base form field, and then we're going to create a different version of it with a component inside of it. So we'll have a +1 drop down for America. So sometimes I'll do this and say, hey, I want to detach this instance. This is no longer the form field. So this is the first time that we're getting away from using that main instance. So we can not do that, or But you want to try and not do that as much as possible so that you utilize the whole sections that you can change throughout the entire app or web app, that when you're changing these colors, it changes throughout the whole site. So I'm going to keep the form field, but what we're going to do is we're going to hide form text, and then we're going to add another piece in here. Actually, we'll just duplicate it. So we're going to say Command D and say phone text, and now we're going to move this. Don't worry, it won't mess up everything else. So what we're going to do is say we want your 3-digit area code, and then 3 numbers, dash, and then 4 numbers. And we want to have like a +1 drop down. So we already have this drop down arrow. What we're going to do is take that. I'm just holding Option basically and dragging it over from this one to this one. And I'm going to, don't freak out and don't watch over there on the right. But what we want to do is have it drop down over here. And I'm going to space it a little bit after I do this. I'm going to copy this rectangle, or just hold Option and say phone drop, and inside of this you want to kind of keep it together, so you can even do an inside group. So we have this phone drop, and it's the inside part. So what we're going to do is like a 32 by 32. Okay, whoops, 37 by 32. What is that? Oh, I have to hit enter. All right, so now we're going to space this and put the drop next to it, and then we're going to take this phone text, duplicate that, and say country, and say +1. Okay, so we've got our drop down, and it might get a little bit bigger, but we're just doing this quickly. So we want this to be able to stretch, and we want it to really stay to the left too. So we want to lock it to the left and not go all the way across. We want this to be aligned center, because they might be adding more. Actually, we'll do left, align left. As it grows, then we'll push the arrow. So this section needs to be grouped together so that it will work together as well. So we're going to change this one to left. I know this is just all for a form, but once you're done, you're done. It's nice. So we'll space this out, 1, 2, 3. So we've got our phone number here. And we're not going to have that one be that you need it. It's not necessary. So here's our phone. This is all messed up now. So we go back to here and we hide those, bring the form text back in the country, and we will say this is the phone section. So now we've got the phone section, which is hiding the phone area, but we want the phone area to be seen. So what we want to do is come in here and say, I want to see the phone. Okay, and we want to take away the other parts. Oops, there. So now we have this phone section, which it should probably look like this, where all these are open, but then this is closed. So you do it really quickly, boom, and you've got a phone. And see if it's stretching. Yep, and this isn't stretching correctly. So, well, it will, but we'll get there. So we'll go back to phone text, say left. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So now, just pretty simple, if we want an email, we just drop it down, 1, 2, 3, and everyone needs email. So we'll do email. And I feel like this form text is too similar. So what I'm going to do is go back quickly and change it from Bootcamp to Bootcamp Gray. All right. So it's just kind of fun as you build out the components. You can see how you can quickly make them stretch, build it out, go quicker. We'll do a comment box next. So this one will stretch because you'll need a lot of paragraphs. We're going to jump to a comment box. What we're going to do is duplicate this section, and on a comment box, I usually just start fresh from the form master to make it a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and see if we can't do it all together. It will be a kind of a crazy form field, but we'll do it. So we're going to have a comment. Not necessary. And let's see what happens. So what we're going to do is pull this form field, this whole master, and see what happens. So it's not working very well at all. What we want to do is have these stack without changing. And we want this to be able to handle a paragraph, and then we want that little drag open bar as if you like to type a little bit more. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate on everything just so you can get a sense of what happens. So I'm going to shift these forms down, or the components down, and what we want to do is come back to the form and this section, this form text, and now we want to say top. So what's going to happen is, boom, you get this already, and I'm going to go ahead and add a comment. Lorem ipsum dolor sit amit. Whoa. Okay, so here's an example too of why it's not wrapping. So what we want to do is go back to your form text and say left and right. And now we're going to set it to stay within those parameters. So it'll be like 32 pixels there, 32 pixels from the top, and we'll get there. So now we want the component section. We want this to be fixed. So this section, we really want this comment area is floating. So how do you get it correct? So if anything's weird, like when you select everything and you're dragging it, it's not working correctly, you can go back to your form and let's check this. So we've got it set left to right, but this is set to scale. So we really want it top to bottom, so it automatically locks it. And we're going to check this one too. We have it left and top. So what happens is it sticks to the top, and as we scroll this, it gets bigger and you have more room for your paragraph. So now we've actually gotten close to this. So we're going to get rid of the drop down arrow. We're going to go into the form field. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit. And I want this DADC whatever, really simple. I'm going to draw a line for our edging and hold shift. I think I want it closer, but we're just doing it quick for you guys. Okay, so we have that field lines, a comment line. We're gonna hide that. Come into here, and we want to see the comment lines. Okay, what happened? So now they're over there. So that's why it's a beauty, not a beauty. It's just nice to have them right here, these components to mess with. So we're gonna go back into the form field. Look at these comment lines. We have them grouped together, but let's go ahead and make them a component, which you can't because I'm on a duplicated area. So I need to come in here and come to the comment line, click here. Oh, it has to be outside. That's right. So what we're gonna do is actually just set this to right and bottom. So it will always stay right there. It needs to be a little bit stronger. So I'm gonna make it this one. Nope, this one. Yep. All right, so now we have our component that's working. It's staying right and bottom, and you can make your component jump out as much as, or go down as far as you want. So it's really nice and simple. Now that we have like a form field that's really strong, has a lot of content in it, but you can hide most of it unless you need it.